trying to get to $200,000. But Uncle G says he'd be embarrassed as a husband, a father, and a human being if he made just $400,000 a year. God damn! There's levels to it, guys. There's levels to it. When you're in your 50s and your 60s and you think about you've done really well in your career, and you think about when you start to make some good money, right? Let's just say it's $200,000, right? The $300,000 to $400,000. Let's just say you make that in your 30s, right? You get to your 40s, you know, your expectation is that your earnings are going to continue to increase every single year if you're gaining skills and you're building on side hustles and so forth. Maybe the corporate job isn't paying you that amount of money, but you're able to bring in the money ultimately, right? For us, we are at that advance your career level. Advance your career level is many of us are beyond the entry level salary. So many of us are beyond the $55,000 a year, which is the average salary in the United States. And many of us are below that, right? Many of us still even want to get to that 55, right? We have a ways to go. But when you have been leveling up for the majority of your life, your mindset is going to change. And I think that's what's happening with Uncle G. And that's what has happened with Uncle G. He probably made $400,000 early on in his 30s or so forth. And he's like, okay, well, going back to how I was living in my 30s, I can't sustain off of $40,000 or $400,000. I cannot live my life like that. And it's just interesting that he was bold enough to come out and say this, that he would be embarrassed as a husband, a father, and a human being if he made just $400,000 a year. God damn! I read that and I saw the video. I'm like, man, Grant Cardone is on a whole nother level. But ultimately, we should be there as well. We should be there in our 50s and 60s as well. $400,000 to us in our 50s and 60s should be a little bit of money. That's how I want it to be. I want it to be $400,000 a year is pocket change. Not in a sense that it's, lent and you can just toss that off in one night. But overall, if you made that amount of money, knowing that you were a husband, a father, a business owner, and so forth, you're like, that's a bad year, right? And some people already like that in roles like tech sales and so forth. But there's levels to the growth. There's levels to advancing your career. When I started to make $100,000 a year, I should think about the $50,000 a year is little. Then you start to get to the 200. Then you say the 100 is little. Then you get to the 300, the 400, $250,000, $500,000. Then you start to look at the hundreds, the 200s, and you're like, that's not a lot of money. I can't live off of that because my lifestyle has changed and I have more responsibility. So I get where Grant Cardone is coming from. And for many, this hurts their feelings. But ultimately, as ladder climbers, this is what we should be striving to get to, where we look back and say, nah, you know what? $250,000 is a good amount of money for the average. But ultimately, I'm not the average, okay? I'm a high performer. I want to make more. I want to make millions. When you climb the ladder, you make millions. And $400,000 a year, that should be maybe a quarter of your salary, okay? If you are a high performer, that should be a quarter of your salary. That would be the new standard when you get to your 50s and 60s and so forth. That's what ladder climbing does. It helps you to advance your career. Ladder climbing also helps you gain exposure to new income brackets, to new skills. If you continue to build on your skills, you enter new income brackets. And Grant Cardone is in a completely new or an income bracket that we don't even know about, okay? When you say $400,000 a year, you will be embarrassed. You are in an income bracket like no other. I would assume Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, some of the CEOs of other companies would say the exact same thing. The CEO of your company would more than likely say the exact same thing. The SVP of your company would more than likely say the exact same thing. They just don't say it, and they don't have the public, they don't have the communication channels to say that. But don't think that those conversations aren't happening in their household, okay? Oh man, I saw this YouTube video. I sent it to some buddies of mine. Grant Cardone said, I would be embarrassed if I make $400,000 a year. God damn! You know what was funny about that is that for some people that cuts, that hurts, but for some people who want to advance and level up, it doesn't hurt. Even if you aren't there yet, it doesn't hurt. It means that, oh man, like I get it. Let's get to this money. Right? Like if you are hurt by that, it's because probably your dreams aren't as big. But for most people, I think the ladder climbers is like, Man, I get it. Just imagine, like, you know, when you had your first job, you're probably making $10 an hour, right? And let's just say you're still blue collar. That's fine. Love it. Blue collar workers crushing it, getting to the money. But when you go from making $10 an hour to making $30 an hour because now you are a skilled plumber or a skilled electrician and so forth. Matter of fact, I had in my office, we had, since the freeze that we had down here in Texas, my water pressure was low. I had to call a plumber, right? Guess how much they charged me an hour just to be out here? $225. So your first job that you had, let's just say out of high school or in high school, paying you $10 an hour, right? Now you're getting paid and billing people $225 an hour. You look back at that $10 as nothing. You're embarrassed to make that if you are at the level that you are now, right? So same thing, different income bracket for Grant Cardone, okay? He's moved up so much to where that $400,000 a year is that $10 per hour to him. So don't get mad. Understand that you have room to grow and you're going to get there. But this caused people to go crazy when they said Grant Cardone said $400,000 a year. He'd be embarrassed. People were like, God damn. People were angry. They were banging their fists on the table. They're like, man, but no point to get angry. Understand where he's coming from. Understand where he's coming from. He's a father. He's a husband. $400,000 a year isn't much to him anymore. You don't need to get angry. Understand where he's coming from. This guy said, I'm going to continue to level up. I'm going to continue to advance my career, ultimately advance my earnings as well. Let's get to this article. If you make $400,000 a year, would you be proud? Many of us would be proud. Yes, we would. We'll feel like we'd be ladder climbing at that point. You got a nice little boat, nice car, nice house. You're doing well for yourself, right? You got the kids on the boat. You got the music playing loud. $400,000 is a lot, but not if you're a real estate mogul and a social media influencer like Grant Cardone, who goes by the name of Uncle G. He says, if I made $400,000 a year, I would be embarrassed with myself as a husband, a father, and basically as a human being, he says in the video on his YouTube channel. $400,000? How do you make sense of $35,000 a month? You guys haven't done the math. You have not done the math because you cannot live on $400,000 a year. God damn! Oh man, right? I'm cracking up about this because I know what he's talking about. But I also recognize that Uncle G, he lost track of the journey. You know how, like, I'm gonna use a football analogy here. You are a defensive back. Somebody scores a touchdown on you. They burn you, right? They tell you to forget the last play.
What's up, ladder climbers? It's Antoine Wade. I wanted to interrupt this video to talk to you guys about Course Careers. Course Careers is the place that you guys need to go if you have a high interest into tech sales. They will help you gain the skills that you need so that you can enter the tech sales world to make a whole bunch of money. Tech sales salaries early on is about $60,000, guys. That's a good salary. And with OTEs, you can make anywhere from $85,000 to $90,000. If you have an interest in tech sales, check out Course Careers, link in the description. And don't forget to use Antoine50 so that you can get a $50 discount off of Course Careers. See you guys in tech sales.
Because you still have to perform. And if you live into that last play and are constantly upset, you're not going to be as natural, as fluid, and so forth. So they tell you to forget the last play. Let's start over. New, down, and so forth. Go out there and crush it. Well, Grant Cardone, he literally forgot that at one point in time, he was making $400,000 a year. And he totally forgot about it. He doesn't recognize who Grant Cardone is at that time because he put it out of his mind. He'd been there, done that. And he's not talking like that, right? So for him, it's like he forgot to play. Now, I don't recommend you guys forget to play because no matter how much money you're going to make, you should always understand what it was like to get there. So these comments of being embarrassed and so forth is probably not the best words to use, but I get it. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I'd be embarrassed as a husband and father if I made $50,000 a year. I wouldn't say that. But as an influencer, you know, that gets views and draws a lot of attention too, right? The motivational speaker also points that he can't live on $2.7 million a year because his plane eats $2.7 million a year. Uncle G got a private jet. He said he can't live on $2.7 million a year. God damn! There's levels to it, right? There's levels to it. You think about somebody like Elon, somebody like Bezos, Somebody like Robert Smith. Robert Smith can't live off $400,000 a year. Can't live off probably $5 million a year with his lifestyle. No, he won't say this though. He won't say this, but he can't live like that. That's a little bit of money for him and what his lifestyle's like. So I get what Uncle G is talking about, but let's talk about what Uncle G also explains, right? Most people don't have a private jet, and according to Census Bureau, the median household income is about $70,000 in 2021. There's probably no need to be embarrassed if you're making $400,000 a year. So the motivational speaker is right, that we could all use some extra money. So here's 3 takeaways you can boost your income. Switch jobs, okay? Switching jobs may seem daunting right now with all these massive layoffs, but analysis from the Pew Research Center reviews that switching jobs could be a clever way to boost your income. You already know that. You're working in a warehouse, you switch jobs, get into tech sales, you're working as a psychologist, sociologist, social worker, whatever you want to call it. You're making $40,000 a year. You want to make 50 plus, switch into tech sales, especially if you don't want to be technical. Get into project management, get into data analytics. Switch jobs is a way for you to make more money. Side hustle. If you don't want to change jobs, or if you do want to change jobs, consider getting a side hustle. Something that pays you extra money in addition to your full-time job. It allows you to earn extra income and can be a way of testing your entrepreneurship waters. We talk about that on this channel often as well. Side gigs are very popular these days. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they reviewed in November that 4.5 million people were working a primary job and a secondary job part-time. Side hustles are the new norm. If you don't have a side hustle, that means you're probably not working that hard. Invest for passive income. Uncle G is a real estate mogul, right? It took him 20 years of trial and error before I achieved a multi-million-dollar net worth. Had to exercise a tremendous amount of discipline and invest as much money as possible into income-generating assets. What are income-generating assets? Real estate. Number 1, stocks, bonds, companies that make money. Now I draw income from 18 companies that he started and 12,000 apartment units that he owns to make passive income. 18 companies. You think about that, guys. You start your own company in your 20s, 30s. You don't know what you're doing. And 5 years from now, that company's making money. Then you start another company. 5 years from now, that company's making big money, because as you start to make money in one company, you learn a lot that's going to allow for you to transfer what you learn now that you know how to make money and leverage those same skills so that you're making even more money. So first company, maybe you're taking losses. Then eventually you start to make money. Second company you start, you know how to make money now. Third company you start, you're making money right away. If you still have those companies operating, by the time that you're 60, that's 30 freaking years. If you've been investing into assets, that's 30 freaking years. Every single year, the money goes up. The money goes up to where $400,000 a year is not anything to you. $2.7 million a year is nothing to you anymore. And you'll be saying this. God damn! So get out there and start, guys. Get out there, start, challenge yourself. Gain those skills. Crush it. 2023 is going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year. What are you going to do for yourself? Not for anybody else. What are you going to do for yourself? You're going to take course careers? You're going to sign up for Master I.T? You're going to get involved and talk to our brother Kev Tech? You're going to talk to our brother AI and me about data analytics? You're going to talk to our brother PBO about cybersecurity? You're going to talk to our brother Paul about sales engineering? You're going to sign up for a level course? You're going to sign up for Black Heights coaching? What are you going to do in 2023? The year has already started. If you haven't done and made a decision yet, you're already behind. You are already behind. Let's get it in 2023, guys, to where we can look back at $400,000 a year and say, God damn! Or we can be saying this. And that's what Uncle G is saying about making $400,000 a year. Matter of fact, Uncle G is saying, hey, you know what? If Antoine was to ask Uncle G, be like, hey man, it's $2.7 million a year. Can you live off $2.7 million a year? Uncle G would be like, no. That's how we should be looking at 2023 as well. I don't care where it is that you're at. You made 40 last year, you should be looking to make 60. To where you look back at 60, and if somebody says, can you live off $40,000 a year? You say, no. Let's get to this money, guys.